Yep, all good. Give me a little thumbs up if the screen's on and you can hear me okay, and we'll begin. So I've done my little session being recorded. You know who I am and you know what I do. Basically, I help people do what they say they want to do. That's it. And today I'm going to share with you part 2 of Game Changers. We're going to revisit the power of mindset, but I'm going to give you something else to work with, another phrase. And then we're going to look at inner resistance, what we do and why we do it. And then we're going to look at meta-alignment. So that means observing ourselves, what we are doing. And we're going to find the angle of our current identity that can support our transformation. So we're gonna align everything so that we can do what we say we want to do. Now, again, we've done the work. We have our premise, we have our vision, we have our purpose, we have our strategy, we have our life vision, we have our funnel of focus, which are our goals, and we have our sacred choices, which are our daily habits. And like we said last week, this is where the rubber hits the road, and it's where the wheels can fall off. But let's revisit mindset. Now, you can do hard things. Remember, we are wired for it. You can also do anything that you choose. Now, that is powerful. And let's believe it, because why shouldn't we? We have to do the work, sure, and it might be quite a considerable amount of work, but we can do anything. You can also create the life that you want. And I say it's within 3 to 5 years. But you have to do 2 things. Number 1, you have to know what you want. And number 2, you have to take the action. And this is where I think Lifebook is such a powerful tool. The methodology is incredible because it does it all for us, but then we just have to do it. We just have to show up and do it every day. Now, I embody this phrase, yes, you can. When I feel like there's a little doubt in my head, when I think, oh, that is really uncomfortable, or I think that's the harder route, I'm not sure I want to go there. Anything that I decide that I want to do, if I need that extra power, I have a chat with myself and I say, yes, you can. Now, I want to give you your own, yes, you can. So if you play with me for a few minutes, close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale, exhale. And just start to feel some comfort and ease throughout your body. Maybe release your neck, release your shoulders, and just breathe. Now I want you to go back in time to a time and a place where you felt strong, where you felt courageous, where you felt powerful. And you felt this throughout your whole body. You felt it in your chest. You felt it in your stomach. You felt it in your arms and your legs. Embrace that power. Embrace that feeling of being invincible. Embrace the lightness. And come up with your own, yes, you can. Whatever comes to mind. Come up with an anchor that can bring you back to this feeling of courage and power and strength and ability and confidence. And whatever came up then, have you ever used it before? And I invite you to use it again. That power, that courage that you can feel, just anchor it to those words and bring that back with you now into the room. Take a breath, inhale, exhale. You can open your eyes and just come back to the room with that anchor to a time that you were powerful and courageous and determined. Okay. I hope you got something from that. And if nothing came up, you can do that on your own, or you can maybe even take my words. Yes, you can. But it's powerful when we can revisit those times. Okay, let's move on. I'd like to look at inner resistance, because I think when we shine awareness on this, it's incredibly useful. So we are constantly looking for comfort from discomfort. And in psychology, we call it a coping method. So in my clinical hypnotherapy, or in my clinical practice, I work with people overcoming dependency. I deal with substance abuse and food habits, overeating or bad food choices. And we used to call them addictions. We don't call them addictions anymore because that implies a permanency to the condition, leaving no room for change. So that's why now we call it dependency. But these dependencies, they come from a coping mechanism that's installed by the subconscious to handle discomfort. So what we're doing, it's never about the chocolate. It's never about the alcohol. It's never about the substance. It's about escapism, escaping from trauma, big T and little t. Boredom is often very present. Pain, fear, dysregulation of some sort. So as a form of escapism, we look for relief in these bad habits or dependencies, which means the motivation for diversion from what we originally say we want to do originates from within. And that's an important distinction. We're perpetually restless and we're dissatisfied, and we're trying to find comfort for the pain of discomfort. Okay. We are actually wired for dissatisfaction. Oh my gosh, how are we gonna survive? We're wired for it. Eons of evolution gave us a mind in a constant state of discontentment. Why? Because if satisfaction and pleasure were permanent, there might be little incentive to continue seeking further benefit or advances. And that's from a study published in the Review of General Psychology. It's baffling because we live in the safest, most well-educated, most democratic, arguably, time in history. But the human psyche is constantly looking for escape. Very, very few of us remain happy for any length of time at all. We can see this in all kinds of situations. Lottery winners. We all have some sporadic moments of joy, maybe dancing in our underwear to ABBA, or the spark of a new love. But none of us have the sustained happily ever after. It just doesn't last for long. So we're wired for that dissatisfaction, and when we can understand that, we can tackle it. In other words, what this study is saying is feeling contented just wasn't good for the species. We're constantly looking for escape. Samuel Johnson was an 18th century poet And he said, my life is one long escape from myself. I need to let my cat out. Just bear with me. Hold on. Come on, Monkey. Come on, Monkey. Sorry about that. So there are 4 psychological factors that make satisfaction temporary and prompt us to distraction. Number 1 is boredom. So I've got an interesting story with this. In 2014, there was a study published in Science, and participants were asked to sit in a room and just think for 15 minutes. The room was empty except for a device that mildly but painfully electrocuted. They could electrocute themselves. Prior to going in for this study, people said that they would pay to not be electrocuted. However, 67% of men and 25% women shocked themselves. So this study concluded by saying that people prefer doing to thinking, even if it's so unpleasant that they would normally pay not to do it. That's how we flee from boredom, how we look at, that's how far we'll go to relieve ourselves from boredom. And it's also why people find meditation so hard, because it is quite boring. Okay, negativity bias. Bad news is stronger than good news. Again, evolution has made us this way. Good things are nice, but bad stuff traditionally in all of human history would kill us. So we tend to pay attention and remember the bad stuff more easily. Rumination. This is the tendency to go over bad experiences and also passively compare ourselves to the perceived state of somebody else. I think it was Brené Brown that said, comparison is the thief of joy. In other words, negative self-talk, rumination. And then number 4, maybe the cruelest of all psychological factors that keep us from being satisfied is hedonic adaptation. And this is the tendency to quickly return to a base level state of satisfaction. And when I learned about this, oh my gosh, it was just such an eye-opener. I can see myself sabotage. When I get to that level of comfort, that ceiling of comfort, I sabotage it in all areas of life. And then there's a book called The Big Leap. I don't know if you've heard of it, by Guy Hendricks. He explains it perfectly. I can highly recommend that you get this book. It's all about hedonic adaptation and how we self-sabotage everything that we do when we get to that limit. So what he talks about is getting into the genius, I think it's the zone of genius, how we get beyond, how we learn to be comfortable with discomfort to reach for higher goals. It really is Mother Nature's like bait and switch hedonic adaptation. So with these 4 psychological factors, it's no wonder that the top 25 websites in America and the UK offer daily escape from the drudgery of ourselves. Shopping, celebrity gossip, bad news, unhealthy food, drink, or social media, social interaction. I mean, we're easy prey. Okay, so with all this futileness, shall we just give up? Shall we just give up and go to bed? No, absolutely not. We have to disavow the statement, if we are not happy, we are not normal. Because the exact opposite is true. If we're not happy, we're completely normal. And we're being taken advantage of. From this place of acceptance, we can realize that the power of inner resistance, and we can overcome it. So we can reframe dissatisfaction. because actually it drives the human race. It pushes inventions and world-changing technologies. It means that we've explored the cosmos, and it's responsible for our species' advancements and its faults. So we must learn to deal with discomfort. And a personal favorite of mine, I mentioned last week that I tend to look for discomfort because I know that's where I'm going to learn and grow. But I do make it playful and adventurous. And I'll tell you how I do that. Before we move on, just remember that anything that relieves discomfort is potentially addictive. We can become dependent on it. But with awareness, we can definitely 100% manage it, make it adventurous, make it playful. Okay, how do we do that? I'm suggesting that we meet the resistance, the inner resistance, with zero resistance. We're making things easy. Basically, we're going to outsmart it. We're going to outsmart the monkey brain, because although the monkey brain is super, super strong, she's not that bright and she loves to play. So we can definitely trick our monkey brain. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at meta-alignment. And this is finding the angle of your current identity that can support your transformation. In other words, we're going to look at what's going to work for you. Exercise 1. We have a little exercise to do. First of all, we need to bring our attention to what's going on. We need to look at what we've said we're going to do, but we're struggling with it. So what habits or tasks have you set that you've said you want to do, but you're struggling with it? And maybe for this, like as we're doing it live, you can take just one example, and then I'm going to show you an example from my life that maybe will anchor it a little bit. So then what psychological factor, one of the 4, is present? What is the discomfort that you're experiencing? And as a result of that discomfort, what are you reaching for to comfort yourself? Okay, this is mine. I struggle with writing and creating presentations like this, actually. The psychological factor that's present for me when I do it is it's hard. It actually hurts my brain. I have to fight to stay focused. It's also messy for me because I've got so much information and I've got so many resources that I want to go blur, but I can't. I've got to make it understandable, and I've got to make sure that it's going to fit into this 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So for me, there's a lot of ambiguity around what I'm going to create. I don't know where it's going to start. I don't know where it's going to end. So that's the psychological factor for me with this particular habit or thing that I do. What do I reach for? I might Google something, and if I Google it, I go down Google's rabbit hole. There's a distraction. Then I'm comforted. I might check emails. I might look at social media, get a notification come up. All of that is way, way easier for me than writing. Then I might fancy a coffee break. And with coffee, I want biscuits. If I write in the evening, oh my gosh, that's really, really troublesome, because then I'll reach for a glass of wine. Because I'll say, well, I'm way more creative if I'm drinking than not, and it's way more interesting. There have been times when I was writing for a magazine, and I would reach for the soju at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Oh, we have someone's mic on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, there was a time that I would reach for the soju at 2 p.m. Also, sweet food. I'll always go for sweet food, and sometimes I'll even want to take a nap. So I have to be super, super aware when I'm sitting down to create presentations or write. I've got to have a spotlight awareness on this. The other thing that is a bit of a challenge for me is swimming. I exercise every day, and I'm a runner, not a swimmer. At the moment, I'm swimming because I've had surgery on my legs, so I can't run at the moment. But swimming for me, the psychological factor that is present is the discomfort over the cold when I first get in, because my pool's not heated. Also, years ago when I started swimming, I had a choking, I choked quite badly, and I actually thought I was going to die. So that's still in my memory. I also find it a bit boring. So I've got those psychological factors going on. So what do? I use delay tactics. I will always find something else that's more important than going swimming. I will always be able to justify not going swimming. So again, spotlight awareness on these 3 things. Write it down. Anything that you are struggling with, map it out like this. Put it in writing. Okay, so how do we meet resistance with 0 resistance? First of all, step back and just notice these urges. Notice what you're reaching for. Notice the excuses that you're making. And this awareness comes from writing it down, like the exercise that we just did. Then observe the discomfort. What psychological factor is present for you? Are you bored? Is it painful? Is it a trauma? Then wait 10 minutes. Don't say that you're not going to have what you're thinking about. Don't resist it. Just say, okay, fine. I'm going to have the coffee and the biscuits. I'm going to wait 10 minutes. And or do a pattern disruptor. So in psychology, a pattern disruptor is when we just change things quickly. We disrupt the pattern. And that can be sometimes cleaning your teeth. That's a really good pattern disruptor if you want something sweet. Go and clean your teeth. Then most of the time, if you wait or if you pattern disrupt, that urge will disappear. I don't know if you're familiar with a psychologist called Jonathan Bricker. He's at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and he spent his whole life, his whole career, helping people manage discomfort that not only leads to distraction from what they want to do, what they've said that what they want to do, but also disease, because he works with smokers, so cancer. He uses this 0 resistance, and it's called ACT. It's from acceptance and commitment therapy, and it disarms discomfort. Done. Try it out. It helps people change their behavior and live much healthier lives. Now, why does abstinence not work? Why does fighting urges or saying you can't have something not work? Remember last week I said there's no language point in psychologically for the word don't. And this is an example of this is don't think of a polar bear. Every one of you right now is thinking of a polar bear. The mind doesn't understand the word don't. There's again, Daniel Wagner is a psychologist, and he has a well-documented study on exactly this. Don't think of a polar bear. He told his group, to not think of a polar bear, and they did so. This is for 5 minutes, and they did so on average once a minute. And then their recall of the polar bear, having completed the study, was still strong and present. So abstinence, resisting the distraction, is futile. In fact, what it does, it energizes what you're trying not to do, because then you start kind of fantasizing and thinking about it, and dopamine kicks in. So abstinence doesn't work. So the 10 minutes pattern disruptor. So yeah, cleaning your teeth is a good pattern disruptor. If you don't want to, if you've said that you want to stop, for example, having dessert, as soon as you finish your meal, get up and clean your teeth. Or for me with swimming, it's the minute I recognize that I'm starting, the delay tactics are coming in, I put my bikini on. I just put my bikini on, and then I go, well, now what are we going to do? Are we going to sit here in your bikini all day, or are you going to go swimming? So it's like disrupt the pattern rather than ruminate over it. Okay, exercise 2. Let's look at meta alignment. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a bit of resourcing. So ask yourself, what do you do successfully? What habits have you managed to create, and how did you do that? And what would your friends and family say about you? So in my clinical hypnotherapy, during my initial consultation, I will sit down with the client and I'm doing exactly this. I'm resourcing. I'm asking them questions to find out, what do they do successfully outside of the problem space? Because then what I do subconsciously is I put that strategy in the problem space so that they can overcome it. Because we all do lots of things really, really well. So think of the habits that you have managed to do, and also what your friends would say about you. Write that down, and I'll show you mine in a minute. Then we're going to align. So we're going to connect the resources with what you say you want to do, your habits. And then we're going to personify both of them. We're going to give them a name. So we're going to actually do this exercise. And what we can use is either a habit that you've decided you want to put in place, or do you remember last week we were looking at, what does our body need? We asked the question. We asked our body, we tapped into our body intelligence, and we said, what do you need, body? And then we were having a look to see what which one of these 7 lifestyle needs it fits within. So maybe you can bring that up, or think of an existing habit. I'm going to share mine with you so that you can see how it might pan out. So what's one of my successes? So what works for me outside of my problem space? I've dialed in my exercise routine. I'm really very good at exercising. I've done it by time slot blocking. So there's just, I exercise every day. And if I'm going to go for a run, I go at 7:30 a.m. because I live in the tropics. So it's way too hot after that. So I have to run at 7:30. If I'm going to do my strength training or my handstands or swimming, I go at 10 a.m. And that's just every day. That's how I've blocked it out. My friends, what would my friends say about me? They would say that I'm super disciplined, that I'm very structured, and that I'm very well organized. But they would also say that I can be very spontaneous and I can be fluid. So let's align what I want to do with that. So what I want to be able to have less resistance over is writing and creating presentations. So, I mean, what I've got to do is I've got to time slot it. I've got to put it, for me, early in the morning, because if I leave it till the evening, there's even more distractions. Like my husband coming home, or my cats need feeding, or wine starts calling, and so does the sunset. So there's all kinds of things that come into play if I leave it till later. I've also got to embody this discipline and the structure that I can find with my exercise. But I've got to keep the fluidity and the spontaneity, because that's really good for creativity, especially if my writing is creative. Now, so that I have always got this awareness of the little chimp, you know, my resistance and my power, I'm going to name them. So the identity that I give to my power is, I call her my true self, because she is powerful. She's wise. I call my resistance my little chimp, because I love her, but she does get very annoying sometimes. But we know that, you know, she might be strong, but she's playful and she's not that bright. So keep in mind that little by little, small incremental changes are required for lasting transformation, because all of this that we're doing, all of this mapping out, is a skill. It doesn't happen overnight. And you can just improve that skill day by day by day, just small changes. And I would suggest that we try not to beat ourselves up when we don't get it right, because that's going to happen, and that is part of the experience. That's part of the learning. Okay, so making habits work. Like I said, it's skill building and it takes time. I mentioned earlier, to make it like playful, make it an adventure. Say, right, let's see if I can wait that 10 minutes today. Let's see if I can wait 12 minutes. Could I wait 15 minutes? So make it playful. I've got my program that I work with people on intermittent fasting, and one of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to intermittent fast is they'll go for like 14 hours straight away, or 16 hours straight away, which is crazy if you're not used to it. You know, really start small. Start with like 10, 11, 12 hours and then build up. It really does take time to make these changes. The other thing that I've found super useful is, you might be familiar with VJ Fogg. He is a professor at Stanford University, and he's the author of the book Tiny Habits. He has this Fogg behavioral model, and it's called MAP. And what he says is, for any habit to take hold, to become a habit, for a thing to become a habit, there has to be motivation, M. You have to have the ability. So is it easy or is it hard? There needs to be ability. And then there needs to be a prompt or a trigger. And when you look at this, you can see how food, social media, the news, bad news, gossip, they fit into this map perfectly. Like the motivation to look at the bad news, we already know it's one of the psychological factors, or the motivation to see how many likes you've got or what your friends are up to. There's loads of motivation there for us to get distracted. Ability, how hard is it for us to pick up our phone and look at what's going on? It's easy. So ability is easy for these bad habits. And what's the prompt? Notifications, you know, things flashing up, bad food in the cupboard. So for all of our bad habits, you can look at your bad habits and see how they fit in to this behavioral model. It's no wonder we struggle. And in fact, several of, I think it was Instagram and several other social media billionaires were once students of BJ Fogg, and they learned this behavioral model. But what we can do with awareness is we can make it work for us. Bring awareness to triggers, so the good and the bad. Obviously, if your notifications off, maybe don't have bad food in the cupboard, whatever, but make use of these triggers. And triggers can be as simple, like I said, as brushing your teeth or changing your clothes, getting your gym attire on. One trigger that I noticed that started happening with me was I wanted to gain muscle. So I really needed to up my protein consumption. So what I started doing was I started making a protein drink and having it after my strength training. From my strength training to come home, it was a 30-minute drive. So for about a week, I would make my protein drink and I would do my strength training and I'd have my protein drink. Fantastic. Really, really pleased with myself. But then I started not making my protein drink. But the habit was there for me to want to reward myself with something to eat after my training. So then I started grabbing a so-called healthy, like fruit and nut bar, or some other form of what I considered might be protein, nuts and dried fruit, but covered in sugar. Basically, the trigger was there that as soon as I finished my strength training, because I had a half an hour drive, psychological factor was boring. Psychological trigger was reward for training. I then always looked for something to eat and drink. Taric, it's in every corner store that I drove past. So then I was having taric full of condensed milk. That good habit turned into a bad one. And so I needed to change that trigger. I needed to get comfortable with the discomfort of driving home. I'm more than comfortable with driving there. I don't even think about food when I'm driving there. I'm not even bored. But driving home, I had changed the pattern. So that's an example of triggers, just to look in your day and say, what's the trigger? Why am I doing that? Can I replace the trigger? Can I do something different? Can I pattern disrupt? Okay. So, yeah, we've talked about that. Oh yeah, another good trigger that I found is, so if you're struggling with like desserts after an evening meal, a really good one is, okay, first of all, you brush your teeth, then you wash your plates up, then you go for a walk. Just go for a walk, 10 minutes. Only 10 minutes, but go for a walk. That's another great pattern disruptor. Okay, summary. So, summary for today was, first of all, the mindset. Either yes, you can, or whatever came up for you when we did that little journey into your past and found the super you, found the found the strength. Then we looked at inner resistance and how we can meet the inner resistance with zero resistance. Why we've got the inner resistance? Because we're made this way, and what we can do about it. And then we looked at meta-alignment, where you can map out your resources and find your alignment and name the identities of your power and your resistance. And then finally, if you want to get in touch with me, there's my website. And there's also lots of resources on there. So you can also get in touch with me via the platform, or website.